But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group.
A promise kept by President Trump is a dream lost for thousands of undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children. The president today rescinded the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as DACA, which protected these young immigrants from deportation.
There is a new battle brewing here over health care. This move by the Trump administration to strike down the entire Affordable Care Act could leave millions of Americans without coverage, including those with pre-existing conditions.
Donald Trump once again moving to bar transgender troops from serving in the U.S. military.
The U.S. President Donald Trump says he will maintain ties with Riyadh, that despite an intelligence report implicating Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the murder of the Washington Post journalist and Saudi critic Jamal Khashoggi.
The CIA has looked at it, they've studied it a lot, they have nothing definitive, and the fact is, maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
He says $450 billion of Saudi investment in the U.S. is at stake.
Politics is a strong and slow boring of hard boards. It requires passion as well as perspective. Certainly all historical experience confirms that one would not have achieved the possible unless time and again he reached out for the impossible. But to do that, a man must be a leader and, more than a leader, he must be a hero as well, in a very sober sense of the word. And even those who are neither leaders nor heroes must arm themselves with that resolve of heart which can brave even the failing of all hopes. This is necessary right now, otherwise we fail to attain that which it is possible to achieve today. This prompt is the ending of an essay by Max Weber titled Politics as Vocation. It's 100 years old, but the core of the essay's writings remain as relevant today as ever. Government is still the legitimized monopoly of violence, and politics is the act of influencing the direction of that violence. Nothing about this dynamic has changed. It is as true today as it was when Weber closed his essay. We are now 4 years removed from the 2016 election, and with the benefit of hindsight, not electing Hillary Clinton was a mistake. For whatever flaws she has, Trump, in absolutely every possible aspect, is worse. He is mean-spirited. He is bigoted. He strains the very notions of checks and balances. His dictates are fascistic. He uses the power of his office for the purposes of vanity and not in pursuit of some noble good, whatever that may be. It is hard to get what you want in this world. You first have to contend with the fact that not everybody wants what you want, and you then have to contend with the fact that even people who do want what you want might want it in a different way. The necessity of life is compromise. The lesser of two evils paradigm exists, even with the least evil person on this planet. Unless democracy is a means to an end to you, in which case you don't really believe in its principles, or if democracy is an end to itself, the fact remains that its validity is contingent on other people's participation in it. We are in a competition to wield violence to our end. The difference between us and conservatives is where we would direct that violence. You can tell a lot about the nature of a person based on his actions when he has power. Donald Trump has, on more than one occasion, tried to rescind the Deferred Action Program to deport the children of immigrants living in this country back to countries that they are fundamentally unfamiliar with. Children brought here, living here. Children who are American in every way but on paper. Their blood bleeds red. Donald Trump tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act without any replacement for the millions of people whose entire access to healthcare rests on that act's foundation. To be precise, around 20 million people have sorely needed healthcare that they otherwise would not have thanks to the Affordable Care Act, with 13 million obtaining it on the exchange marketplace and the rest obtaining it by the Medicaid expansion. The subsidies that keep people alive were almost repealed in their entirety in 2017 when one lone vote from John McCain saved millions. Trump has been insistent on continuing the repeal effort for people covered. Their blood bleeds red too. Trump's White House has been derelict on the world stage on a host of issues important to the well-being of not just Americans domestically, but everyone abroad as well. Under his administration, the US has withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accord, as well as being the only country not to sign on to 2 resolutions opposing violence against women and girls, in addition to a resolution opposed to coerced and child marriages. This presidency is one of consequence. In addition to the 2 seats that conservatives now have on the Supreme Court, who will dictate the direction of judicial precedent for decades to come, we also have a president which has courted foreign intervention on more than one occasion, touts conspiracy theories, undermines the rule of law, and abandons our allies to ethnic cleansings. We have encouraged alliance nations to proliferate in nukes, and we have penalized Iran for combating their own nuclear proliferation. We have dictated that South Korea should evacuate its residents rather than commit to a defense agreement to deter North Korean aggression. We have increased the cost of defense sharing with allies by 400% with no justification. 4 more years of Trump is dangerous. If that is not enough reason to vote against him, I'd beg you to stop and consider the position of others. Accelerationism does not accelerate you into your ideal system. It accelerates everybody else into untold suffering. It accelerates immigrants out of this country. It accelerates the sick into early graves for lack of care. It accelerates LGBTQ people into marginalization. It removes all the hard-fought gains we've acquired. Joe Biden is an imperfect man. His record is certainly not without blemish, but it is certainly not without accomplishment either. In 1994, his proudest achievement made its way into law, the Violence Against Women Act. The act established a federal rape shield law, created an office in the Justice Department tasked with overseeing a reduction in violence against women where they're most vulnerable, that is, the home, their school, their work. Services provided to women included cash grants to assist women in transitioning into new housing, victims assistance programs, programs to provide legal assistance to women who were victimized, and programs aimed at men and youth to help in violence prevention. This legislation was major in turning the tide of law enforcement from dismissing domestic violence and even spousal rape as mere family issues to actual criminal acts worthy of prosecution. Since the passing of the Violence Against Women Act, the rate of intimate partner violence has declined by 64% from 1993 to 2010. Biden was also instrumental in establishing the Federal Kids 2000 Act. The act was a partnership act to provide at-risk children access to computer centers and internet education that they otherwise would have been denied. It established thousands of centers through a joint funding agreement with Congress at Boys and Girls Clubs all across the country. Untold millions were given educational opportunities thanks to a bill sponsored by Joe Biden, and untold millions had improvements in life quality thanks to that bill. In his role as vice president, he secured votes for 2 prominent liberal justices on the Supreme Court, including the first Hispanic to ever sit on the court, Sonia Sotomayor. Under the Obama administration, Biden instituted Recovery Act funds to create more than 2.5 million jobs. We went from an unemployment rate of 10% to a low of 4% upon his exit. We experienced more than 80 straight months of job growth. In 2018, a very human moment was shared between Joe Biden and a homeless veteran known only by the name of Rashid, when Biden took a break from taking his granddaughters to the movies to speak with the veteran. He was told by the veteran that he had trouble securing housing vouchers before Joe Biden gave him a number of a personal contact who would assist the man to get him off the streets. This was a personal touch to capitalize on the already magnum-level accomplishments of the Obama-Biden administration, which saw a 47% decline in the number of homeless veterans. The viral photograph was taken without much fanfare and without the vice president knowing about it. Under the Obama-Biden administration, a credit card bill of rights became law which barred creditors from raising interest rates without justification. It was a bill called the Credit Card Act. Credit card companies were required to demonstrate transparency in their dealing with consumers. The law prohibited penalties accrued for late payments on uninformed rate hikes. Companies were now barred from raising interest rates on unpaid debt less than 2 months old. Before Barack Obama ever came out in defense of same-sex marriage, Joe Biden was there first. It was under the Obama-Biden administration that Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, that the Defense of Marriage Act was no longer defended in federal courts, and that same-sex marriage became legalized by the Supreme Court. Gay rights in this country transformed over the space of a generation from being illegal by way of sodomy in 2000 to full and equal marriage protections by the end of Biden's time as vice president. Joe Biden was part of an administration which likewise reversed the ban on transgender troops serving openly in the military. It now no longer mattered what your gender identity was. You could serve. Joe Biden was part of an administration which saw the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd hate crimes legislation put into law, named after Matthew Shepard, murdered for his homosexuality, and James Byrd, murdered for his skin color. Shepard was left to die on a barbed wire fence after being beaten by 3 men in a drunken rage, and James Byrd was dragged to his death by 3 white supremacists who went to a barbecue after abandoning Byrd's remains. The law amended existing hate crimes legislation to capture more vulnerable people targeted on the basis of their identity, including trans people. It provided grants to states to assist in hate crimes prosecution, and it required the FBI to keep statistics on hate crimes based on gender identity. Joe Biden was part of an administration which grew access to colleges for impoverished students by expanding Pell Grants. The administration Joe Biden served also expanded the American Opportunity Tax Credit as part of the Recovery Act, a tax credit worth $10,000 over 4 years of college. Student loan payments were capped at 10% of their annual income thanks to the Pay-As-You-Earn program by the Obama-Biden administration. Total student aid was increased by some $50 billion during Biden's time in office. Perhaps the most major accomplishment from Obama's White House came in the form of healthcare legislation. As Biden remarked, "This is a big fucking deal," and it was. The Affordable Care Act ensured more than 25 million Americans. It prevented discrimination based on pre-existing conditions. Under this amendment, the insurance rate reached historic lows and was on track to decrease even further. Impoverished, uninsured rates declined by 20% thanks to the Medicaid expansion. Children under the age of 26 could be insured on their parents' plans. All these gains were hard-fought, and all these gains almost did not happen. Obamacare was effectively dead legislation when Ted Kennedy died. The Democrats lost their filibuster-proof majority. Behind the scenes, Vice President Biden lobbied then-Republican Senator Arlen Specter to vote for the act and secure its passage. Arlen Specter did just that. He switched parties and ensured the act's passage, which gave healthcare for millions upon millions who desperately needed it. Not to detract from what Specter did, but Joe Biden saved lives. Joe Biden secured that vote. To the naysayers who might declare these are half measures or inadequate, I don't necessarily disagree. Civilization did not stop at these bills. We still have a lot of work to do. As Bernie would say, not me, us. We are not done yet. Biden was part of an administration that cut veteran homelessness in half, but the other half is still out there. Biden was part of an administration that insured tens of millions, but at least 10 million more still need help. Biden was part of an administration that gave us DACA and secured a home for millions of Dreamer kids, but we're not done yet. There are still millions more who call this place home that face deportation, millions more who live under the gun every day under the Trump White House. Even Bernie Sanders understands this threat. Joe Biden supports a $15 an hour minimum wage. He supports paid family leave. He supports overturning Citizens United. He supports abolishing the death penalty. He supports removing the cocaine sentencing disparity, eliminating mandatory minimums and private prisons. He supports tuition-free university education. He supports student debt forgiveness. He supports citizenship for Dreamers. He supports securing abortion rights for women. He supports limitations on out-of-pocket costs and allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He supports a public option healthcare that will see 17 million more Americans insured than were before. He supports the most progressive general election platform the Democrats have ever had. I don't like getting personal. I don't like being open about my life with other people. I'm a private person, and I'm just not the sort of person to go to others. My girlfriend of several years is blind. She is blind. She cannot see. She cannot work. She was born with Chiari malformation and she needs help, and it hurts me to no end that I simply cannot help her. I love her very much and I cannot make her see, and that hurts me. Her life's quality depends on the healthcare she has access to. She will never be able to work. She will never be able to hold a job. She will never be able to secure the blessings of a quality life for herself. She is a beneficiary of Medicaid. Medicaid, which is under constant threat of repeal or reductions. Medicaid, which Republicans are on a mission to cut. Do not vote for Joe Biden for people like me. I don't need anybody's help. Do it for her and the millions like her whose access to quality care is a life and death struggle dictated by wealthy men in suits that they will never be able to lobby. There is a difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and that difference is life and death for people with disabilities. Joe Biden is running on the most progressive general election platform in the history of this country, barring third parties which certainly have no chance of ever being elected. Electing Joe Biden does not necessarily mean one will get all of these, but some improvements are better than no improvements. You have an obligation to your country. If it is not your life under the gun, then it's somebody else's. It's not me who will be hurt. It's my girlfriend. It's millions of other people. It is their lives under the gun. Don't give that gun to Donald Trump. Come November, millions of people could be hurt. Or millions of people could be helped. At the end of the day, don't forget, politics is a strong and slow boring of hard boards. It requires passion as well as perspective. Vote Biden because it is simply the right thing to do.